Welcome back to the Wirex Podcast. I'm your host, Lianna, and today we're asking, are national currencies losing relevance in a world powered by crypto? Joining me is Stephen Wundke, Strategy and Revenue Director at Algoz. We'll explore how crypto is challenging borders, reshaping trust, and changing how we all use money. Welcome, Stephen.
Thanks, Lianna. Nice to be here.
Thank you. Perhaps we could start with your professional background. If you could just let us know how you got to where you are today.
Now, that's an interesting thing. Given that we're all products of our experiences, I don't think there'd be any time left to talk about the conversation we're going to have around countries and their currencies, because it is such a long and varied thing. I guess the relevant part is that I got involved in the crypto industry back in 2017 and enjoyed lots about the blockchain in particular, which obviously is at the base of all of cryptography in terms of what we do. Um, and enjoyed creating some products that used the blockchain. I then became the director of corporate at Celsius. That didn't end particularly well. I hasten to add, not down to me specifically, and then was very lucky to end up with Algoz, who are a terrific company to work with. So, yeah, it's been an enjoyable part of life being involved in such a vibrant and exciting industry.
Yeah, that's an amazing journey. So let's get down to it. What's driving people to move away from national currencies? Is it innovation, mistrust, or necessity?
I think it's a bit of all three of those, and it depends which country you're in. Um, all currencies and our industry generally, and I'm talking about finance rather than just crypto, works on trust. One of the things that the blockchain has with its immutable ledger is the ability to create a strong level of trust. And if I were to take, I don't know, certain African countries, let's say, the people who have to have their currencies don't trust the people who are making decisions at the top. They go into their bank and they find they can't withdraw on any given day, or that the currency is now worth 1,000th less than it was 1 week ago. Trust is, and I'm exaggerating to make a point there, but the trust is very much questioned. Where there is economic or political instability for a currency, then trust is again in question. And that's the sort of area that, both in terms of settlement and in terms of guarantees of payment, the blockchain is able to give that certain currencies can't provide. And perhaps we'll go into some more detail around that later. But you can see how that impacts all 3 points that you brought up there.
Yeah, and trust is such a huge element, right, to all of this. How close are we to a world where you can live entirely on crypto without ever touching fiat?
I guess there are people who are doing that already. It just depends on how many areas your life touches. But if you talk about running your finances, I'm not necessarily talking about going down to the shop and buying some milk, for instance. But if you talk about managing your finances, there are people who are already doing that, who are outside the banking sector already. Not a lot. The banks, we're in a fight for the world's money right now. The banks have a huge vested interest in the payment system as it exists, because let's face it, if you can hold on to people's money for 1, 2, or 3 days while you say that's what you have to do in order to transfer it to somebody else, then you're making good money in the overnight markets to be able to do that. And you're not going to give that up willingly. So it's not as easy as it might have been, because we're fighting for the world's money, and banks are going to fight very, very hard. Some of them are starting to understand that the genie is now out of the bottle and are starting to use the payment system that the blockchain enables. Not many people know that there was $1 billion worth of transfers done using the Ripple stablecoin in the banking sector a couple of weeks ago, in a week, and that's just the start of it. So people are starting to understand, the banks are starting to understand that they need to embrace this technology and stop fighting it. And I think genuinely they are. But there are people who are outside the system now, but not a lot. But there are more and more, as more banking apps allow you to have your own currency, perhaps another world currency, and maybe a few cryptocurrencies, all in the same app. We're really close to that happening.
That's pretty significant. One did you say 1 billion?
1
Was it
billion,
one
yes, in a
billion?
week. Yeah, 1 billion
Yeah,
in a week.
that
And
is
ultimately,
significant.
Ripple bought recently, they bought G Treasury. And there are some who are trying to create payment rails, and they're talking about billions. Ripple are in a position where technically in a year, 18 months' time, they could be doing trillions, not billions, in transfers across the network. So, that's when you start to talk about significant amounts of scaling up. They have the technology to do it. And they're not the only ones, by the way, but I highlight them because they've been around it a little bit longer. I'm not talking about the XRP token here. I'm talking about their stablecoin that's being used, but it's the technology that's exactly the same. So, we're seeing more and more significance around these cross-border and cross-banking transactions, and they're one of the leaders in it.
Yeah, and speaking of which, do borderless payments truly make global life easier, or, are there hidden barriers still holding users back?
I suppose the strength of the US dollar is the thing, or lack of it currently, that is
Mhm.
driving change. You can't keep printing trillions of dollars and expect dollars to have the same value as they did. That's just simple economics. And hence you see the rise of Bitcoin and the rise of gold. That's not necessarily because everybody's buying Bitcoin or gold. It's because the dollars that we value them in currently are worth less than they were because they keep printing. And if Mr. Trump gets this current bill passed, there'll be another few trillion in the system that'll be printed as well. So there will be another rise after that because these dollars become less. But it's not just the dollar where you see, if you look at China, are very, very keen on using this technology. And if you look, they have a stable coin of their own. The Shanghai Oil and Gas Exchange, all the LPG contracts are now priced in yuan. Now, that would never have happened before. Not dollars, yuan. Soybeans, similarly. So, on one side, you're starting to see a grind down of the use of the US dollar. And on the other side, you're starting to see that technology. China also created a stable coin backed by the yuan, and 52 trillion was settled earlier this year of one in stable coins. They just released it in Kazakhstan as well. So there's a big effort there to create something, which is obviously a threat to the US dollar. Now, euro dollars, which are held right across the world by lots and lots of companies, banks, etc., still mean that there's a huge strength, but it's being chipped away at all the time.
Well, we are really living in exciting times, right? What are the biggest misconceptions users have about borderless money, and how can we clear them up?
I guess it's a fear around how things happen. Even the banks, they don't go in on day one and say, I'm going to settle billions on using the blockchain with whatever coin they've decided to use it with. They do it with small amounts to start with. And I think that's the thing. It goes back to what we said at the start, building trust. It's just this fear of the unknown, but everything started like that. There's always the fear. And let's face it, if we that the argument that's been perpetuated from day one around Bitcoin, let's say, was, oh, it's all used by drug smugglers and arms dealers. And ultimately, if you were going to invent something to do those kind of trades, you wouldn't invent something that involved the blockchain because all the history is there for you to see. You'd invent cash. But we're very comfortable with cash. That's what people have used, although less and less. I can't remember the last time I had any real money in my pocket at any time. So I think people are getting more and more comfortable with the technology, and bit by bit, they will do something that gives them confidence, and that'll grow over time. We're only at 8% of the world's population now has a digital wallet. That's a big growth, and it's following exactly the same adoption curve as the internet. So, if you'd have told me that my almost 90-year-old mother and father-in-law would come into my house and say, oh, listen, what's the internet code so I can use my mobile phone? 20 years ago, I'd have said that'll never happen. Yet that's exactly what they do. They want to be on their phones. So it's only a matter of time that everybody will have a digital wallet and everybody will be using some currency or another. Whether that currency will be your own currency or whether it's a gold-backed stablecoin that has universal appear and whatever we value it in, that's going to be a different matter altogether.
I love that, the fact that your, your mother and father, was it father-in-law?
Father-in-law,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, asking to use the internet. That's amazing. Um, what what would a borderless economy mean for salaries, remittance, and the way we think about earning?
I I actually I think it's happening already. Um, I read just the other day that in Singapore, the average wage is $100,000. That's something that would have been unheard of 40 years ago to think that that would be possible. We now trade we already trade on a global basis. You know, you come up with a product, I'll guarantee somewhere in the world, somebody else has got a product just like that one. The days of having a monopoly on something, perhaps with the exception of NVIDIA, the days are gone. You are trading globally against people in other parts of the world. And as that happens, the one that was cheaper in another part of the world starts to realize they can get more for it because everybody else is more expensive. And you get a parity on price. A Mars bar costs pretty much the same in almost all parts of the world now. I'm going to rule Africa out of that for a moment, but in almost all parts of the world, a Mars bar pretty much costs the same because the ingredients now cost the same, the labor's getting to cost the same. So we're already getting a normalization of trading across the globe. All we're talking about now is creating a system of payment that's faster, and everything that we have in technology in our world gets faster. This is just the last bit of the coin to be able to come on board.
I love the fact that you use the analogy of the Mars bars. I mean, it's really put things into perspective, right? Could everyday users really trust a decentralized system over a government-backed one?
Hmm. I'm going to say I don't know the answer to that. In certain parts of the world, it would be no big deal because they don't trust their government anyway. Um,
Yeah.
I guess it boils down to. I think it more boils down to what are they actually going. This is the biggest obstacle. What are they going to call it that they value what it is that they've got. Now, we all pretty much, wherever we are, understand what a dollar is, even if it's not our currency. I live in the UK, and obviously we have pounds, but everybody knows what a dollar is. And you go to various parts of the world, and pretty much everybody knows. Even Bitcoin, we don't talk about 5 Bitcoin. We talk about Bitcoin being $107,000 or near enough today. So it's valued in a dollar because we understand the value of it. So if we're going to lose the dollar, what are we all going to understand across the world as the base level, as a value component to it? And that's the biggest trick to it. I think most people have forgotten, I know in the Caribbean, for instance, the East Caribbean dollar had its time, but you still went around the Caribbean islands and you paid in dollars, US dollars, wherever you went. People accepted it. They didn't really care because they trusted that US dollar. I think that bit is under stress, but ultimately, what is it that we're going to use to say how much is gold worth? Gold's not worth 1 ounce or it's worth this much in dollars. That's the difficulty that we have with that global trading, having a unit that everybody can accept. The stablecoin part of it, or the technology uh, of the blockchain, that can deal with it, no problems, and it can deal with it in volume. There's no difficulty with that. The latest upgrades, Ethereum have been following a very fast pace towards becoming a currency that you can use in every thing that you do. And there are others that work even faster. So that's not going to be an issue. But it's what it's actually going to be. What is that thing worth that I bought? What are we going to call it? That's more the issue, I think, Lianna.
Yeah, I feel like, there's still I wouldn't say we still have a long way to go, but there are some complexities that still need to be thought about, right? Um and my next question is, do you think decentralization automatically means fairness, or could it create new kinds of financial inequality?
Um, well, there's two sides to that. There's a project I know about at the moment that's taking place across Africa. There's a very big consortium who put it together who are creating a gold-backed stablecoin. It's got trillions that are being pledged to it. Some of the biggest players in the world are involved in this consortium. And the idea is that gold-rich countries, and one of them's already come on board. If you Google it, you'll find out that Burkina Faso has committed to being part of this network and committing their gold to it, with the idea being that these countries will create a fairer system for the people within their countries so that this gold-backed stablecoin will be able to be used to sell crops, and then they'll get paid in that coin. They'll have a Visa or MasterCard. They'll be able to spend these gold-backed stablecoins wherever they go, and they won't be the subject of currency controls or massive risks of deflation around the place. That definitely provides a fairer system for the people at the blunt end of the whole system. And I believe there are something like 18 different African countries all about to sign up to this. And I'll let people do their own research on that. But that's where something could make a real difference. Now, on the other side, if we end up with this yuan versus dollar fight, that's a different level altogether. But it'll be down to the US continually printing bills that'll cause the problem. If there's no responsibility, I'm not necessarily saying that everybody needs to go back to the Bretton Woods days, but you can't continually keep printing dollars and expect that there won't be some problems in the future.
That's really fascinating. Thank you for that insight. Will national currencies eventually become local tokens in a global crypto ecosystem, you think?
Um, yes, I think they will. I don't think there's a problem having, if you live in a country where you have had stability, and that's pretty key in your government, and you've got economic trust in your system, then why wouldn't you want to keep your currency alive? Because people there understand what one of this represents. So I think that continuity it might still be settled digitally, and I'm not talking about CBDCs here. I'm just talking about the technology. I'm not a lover of CBDCs because I think we end up with that control that we don't want. But ultimately, yeah, I think the currencies can survive and the currencies. You're going back again, as we said about trust. If there is stability, if there is economic restraint and control and very good governance, there are lots of examples where they could have been usurped by a bigger environment and are still there. So, but it still boils down to stability, trust, economic restraint, and good governance.
Amazing. Thanks for that. And, finally, what does financial freedom really look like in a world without borders? And are we ready for it?
Um, well, first of all, it's going to be a lot cheaper when we all travel, right? When we all travel, because of this whole thing, there are costs involved in us buying using our card in another country and then having it converted into something else. And while it's being converted, it's held in a bank who takes fees for doing so while we're doing that. And we all pay for that. And all of those reprehensible products at the airports where they say, come here and buy this coin, and you end up paying a 10% fee to change into another currency. So it's going to be a lot cheaper for us to be able to travel for a start. And that's really good.
And that's amazing. Thank you so much, Stephen. And that was Stephen Wundke from Algoz, sharing powerful insights on how crypto is redefining global finance. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, share, and tell us, do you think national currencies still matter in the crypto era? Thanks for listening. I'm Lianna, and this is the Wirex Podcast. See you next time.